All right. So, according to YouTube, I am now live. Let's go ahead and check and see if we have the sound and everything. Looks like we're good. All right. Hello, everybody. In this wonderful community that I have. Hey, everybody. So, I wasn't sure if we were going to be doing a live show this week. I have talked about taking December off. But here we are doing critical Q&A because it's actually really easy for me to do. I literally just have to come in here and turn the lights on and turn the camera on and make a few adjustments and boom, we're good. And because of this recent event in recent news in the world of Scientology with this computer hack, this ransomware hack that the Church of Scientology was at the receiving end of, a criminal act, no question about it, I thought some Q&A and discussion about this might be timely. And because I've done a ton of prep on earlier things, earlier time periods that the Church of Scientology has been in trouble or has been involved in internet computer stuff, I thought we might take an opportunity today to do some Q&A and talk about this. So let's go ahead and go over to our host and chat. See if that, there we go, good. So we can put the chat up on the screen there. And then just because we are doing the usual Q&A format, let's go ahead and start our Q&A with please put your questions or comments here that you want me to see. Okay, good. And we'll just pop that in there for the Q&A there, as we always do. Throw that up there. Make that a little bigger so I can read it when your questions come in and stuff. Okay, great. And everything else appears to be in order. I'm doing the editing. Let me give you guys a quick update while people get on board here. The editing phase of my second book on cult recovery is going along just great. I'm not stressing or freaking out about it. I've given myself the weekend off, for example. I'm not like, I'm going to get back to it on Monday. And I'm about a little, maybe a third of the way through the edits that I had the full manuscript edited. There's a bunch of comments, bunch of corrections, bunch of things, suggestions for me. And so I'm going through and making those changes and adding things and realizing I want to change this, change that, do the other thing. At the end of the day, it is my editor and sort of person I'm working with on this reminds me, it's your book. You want it to be your product at the end of this whole thing, but we got these editorial suggestions, so it's going along really, really well, and that's what's happening with that. Also, I hope you guys, somebody just commented. I hope you guys will check out the podcast that I posted with Rachel Bernstein yesterday. It was a shorter than usual podcast, a quick talk with her about a new book she has posted, written, which is a workbook, cult recovery workbook that we talked about in the interview, and got to catch up with her a little bit. As she said, she and I are just so busy all the time. We rarely just cross streams in what we're doing, even though we're sometimes working with the same people or working on adjacent projects. So it's kind of funny, what goes on behind the scenes with all this stuff. And yeah, it'll be great. So check out Rachel's book for sure. And of course, I'm looking forward to getting my book done. I think the title is solidified as far as I think it's along the lines of "What Now?" That's the main title. What now? ? Life, how to a practical guide for life after a cult. I think is what I'm calling it, and so something like that, something close to that. So anyway, just so you know what to look for. I don't know for sure what publication date yet, but I'm still pushing for before the end of this month. You get a dry throat today. It's been nicer here. It's really cold here in Denver right now. There was some snowfall this week. We had the first snow in the last week or so. So it's a little chilly today, but nice out. I don't think we're going to have any more snow for the next week or two, according to the forecast. Okay. Okay, so we have some questions and stuff coming in. So we will take those up. Thank you, and keep putting those questions in. Let's go ahead and talk about this hack that happened. Let's just so for anybody who doesn't know the full story, or I'm going to assume coming here that you maybe know a little bit, or maybe you know everything, but I'm going to lay out everything I know. And maybe this week, Alex Barnes-Ross and I will also do another, live stream discussion about this from his perspective. But I had some things to talk about. So, okay, so the Church of Scientology of the United Kingdom, the AOSH, the Advanced Org, St. Hill, United Kingdom, that organization is the main headquarters of Scientology in the United Kingdom. They're at St. Hill Manor and thereabouts in East Grinstead. And this down in southern England. And so I think maybe an hour or something outside of London, I'm told, something like that. The hack was carried out by a group called Qilin. That's Qilin. That is a Chinese word. Apparently it means unicorn. But it's not a Chinese hacker group. It's a Russian hacker group, according to all the information I could dredge up on it, that uses that name and is a sort of a very for-profit oriented hacker group. They have had years of operation. They are prolific. They have engaged in hundreds of ransomware attacks just this year. And they go after high value targets they feel are going to pay them, not individuals, but corporations, groups, companies, hospitals, NGOs. They've gone after, charitable type organizations, but it's not a moral thing. There's no ideological principles that we're aware of connected with this group. They are apparently considered Russian because of certain lines of code that are found in their hacks and the way they go about using the tools and the programs and software they use to do their hacking. Apparently has some code in it that indicates they're Russian. So, oh, hey Shane, cool. Yeah, no Hawaiian shirts because I said it's cold. Okay, so as far as this company goes, that's the group that did it. I guess they probably executed this hack a few weeks ago, because the reason we know about it is because they released publicly documents or screenshots of 22 different things they had, documents or invoices or various things they had, to show what they had, to show the public, hey, we got stuff, right? And we're going to release it if you guys don't pay us. Well, apparently ransomware is a business of diminishing returns these days. I guess in the last quarter, something like 18% of ransoms are being paid. Companies are being advised by security companies and internet, watchdogs and security groups and stuff not to pay. Don't pay these things, because there's no end in sight for when you start paying somebody who's blackmailing you. Excuse me. Generally speaking, that's not the way to deal with somebody who's blackmailing you, right? Because they're not incentivized to particularly stop after you've paid them. So we'd have no idea right now whether Scientology is going to pay this ransom or not to get their information not released. Excuse me. As far as I understand, that's basically what they're paying for, right? That's like it wasn't like their information was stolen. I think they just copied it, encrypted it, and won't unencrypt it, or won't give it back, and will release it publicly if they don't pay. Something like that. There's some kind of leverage that they're putting there. And what has been exposed, we come into two or three things. Today on Tony Ortega's Substack, Alex Barnes-Ross wrote a breakdown analysis of the various screenshots of what was shown. There were invoices, reports, what are they called? Purchase orders, a lot of financial stuff, right? Which indicates that they got into the non-OSA regular operations accounts or servers for Scientology there in the UK. Oh, let me walk back for a second and explain what I understand about how Scientology has things organized that way, because this might be of interest. Scientology's internal server network is a kind of an intranet. They set it up where it's internal, kind of network system, obviously with servers and network terminals that are kind of dumb terminals that, and it all operates through there's a centralized finance system that Scientology wrote and use that is very old, software-wise, code-wise, and it's not connected to the internet. It was written pre-internet. The accounting software, the invoicing finance system software that churches of Scientology use is pretty old stuff, and it's not connected to the internet in any way as I understand it, except that Scientology has to send and receive information to and from management. So they're connected to that degree. And I guess somehow these guys got in through that external communication line, because Scientology sets up its servers and its systems to be impervious to outside attack. Because, if you're not connected, then you can't be attacked by the outside, is the theory, right? They're not going to attack you on radio waves or something. But somehow there was a connection made, and they got in. Let me see. Scientology org computer systems run potentially what they would have gotten is sort of what I'm assessing right now, right? What information is on a computer system in a Scientology organization? The invoice and finance system. So all the invoices, all the billings, all of the accounts payable, accounts receivable for the organization itself is in that finance system. So all the creditors, all the debtors, all the bills, everything. It's all in there. So that's the treasury finance side of things. There's a central files computer system that ties into the accounting system, the database of all the customers. And that central file system has scanned all the letters and documents and information about each customer is kept, in a file for that customer. So every single Scientologist basically has a whole bunch of image files stored digitally that show all their invoices, all their letters to and emails back and forth to the organization. All that stuff is stored digitally. So potentially every single communication that church in the UK has engaged in to all people, right, would be on those servers. I don't know how often Scientology backs up, archives, deletes, cleans house on its backlogged emails or backlogged files, or how efficient it is with all of that. I don't know. But potentially it's all there to be gotten. Let's see. ethics and OSA files. Now, theoretically, all of that is digitized too. OSA has separate network lines. OSA's security would be run separate from Scientology main church line activities, right? They would have separate servers. How far their security goes beyond that, I couldn't say. I don't have intimate personal knowledge of that. Actually, there's someone I should have called who I should have asked about this, actually, now that I'm sitting here doing this breakdown. But I didn't think about this one detail. So I can see if I can find out more about the internal security measures within the system as far as that goes. Boy, I really wish I'd made that call now. But I do know that, because I was involved in establishing the Bridge Publications network. I worked with the INCOMM guys when they moved into that football field size building where they produce all the books and CDs and everything for Scientology in English and most of the Western Hemisphere languages. I was there setting all that up with them, doing the fiber, laying all the cables, setting up the servers, all that. So that's kind of how I know about some of this stuff, but I don't have like the programmer level knowledge of this. Anyway, but I know from within Scientology that OSA is crazy paranoid about their security. They had a line called the 10G line, where you could send an encrypted communication from the PAC base or from West US to, OSA int without any possibility that somebody was going to be able to hack that communication. It was called the 10G line because it cost $10,000 apparently to put that line in or keep it running or something. And this was, this was all I was allowed to know as a CLO West US staff member about this 10G line. But that's what they do. I know those are the kind of things they do for OSA specifically, to keep OSA in a bubble, all of its own. So I'm saying all of this because it's not clear to me right now in any of the screenshots or releases that we know about whether any OSA information has been compromised. The hacking group, the Chi-Lin guys, aren't going to know dick all about Scientology. Again, this is not a moral crusade or a specific individually, specially targeted thing that they went after Scientology. Chi-Lin goes after tons and tons, hundreds and hundreds of companies. Scientology is just one of many. And they're probably targeting Scientology because business isn't going so great and they're just diversifying their targets. So, yeah. As far as, credit card numbers, it's all in there, right? The whole system is exposed to them. And so it's very, very likely that if they got finance system information, if they got the actual finance system, and they have the ability to decode it, because one of the benefits of it being written and stored in such old language, in such an old, DOS-based system. It's it's old DOS-based stuff. It's not a Windows-based system. I was talking to INCOMM guys about updating it to a Windows system, when I was still in, and they were like, yeah, we got to get around to that. They still haven't gotten around to it. So this could work in the church's, benefit if the hackers can't decode the information from the finance system. But I'm going to give them all kinds of credit that they know exactly what they're doing and that they'd be able to figure that out if they were motivated to do so and knew what they had on their hands. Because all the data is there. Anything that's stored in the finance system, it's all there, wide open. And Scientology did not design their system, with Chi-Lin in mind, to guard against people, hacking them at that level. Okay. Just check the things here. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, no, I don't think they've upgraded to Windows in the meantime. I don't think that's happened. So let's go ahead and just with what I've downloaded so far, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the questions that have come in from you guys, and throw them up on the screen and go as we do. Excuse me one second. There it is. Oh, this is about the chat with Rachel. Yeah. It was good. It was really good. I really enjoyed talking with her. She's always a blast. What have I learned from her that changed my life? Holy shit, man. Like 20 million things. Rachel Bernstein is someone that I have interviewed. If you guys don't know, Rachel Bernstein is a therapist out in Los Angeles. She's a family therapist, individual therapist, and ex-cult counselor. She can work with people, who've been in cults, and she knows what she's doing because she, very, very, very early on in her career, she kind of got into it with Scientology and learned really quickly what cults are about and made that part of her practice and education. So Rachel's been awesome because she was one of the first people I connected with in the therapy world when I got out of Scientology. And I didn't get therapy from Rachel. We don't have that kind of relationship. We're just friends. But the things that she taught me as a professional in interviewing her on my channel for my Sensibly Speaking podcast and now Speaking of Cults podcast, invaluable. I can't even list to you or enumerate to you the number of things that she and I have talked about that enlightened or taught me, really, really important stuff. We've covered, how to talk to people who are in cults. Like, how do you talk to a Scientologist? How do you relate at an emotional level first and a sort of rational level second, right? Like, she was one of the ones who kind of taught me about how to interact and engage and be real with people without, always having to be so goal oriented in your relationship strategy. Right? In other words, can you just sit out and hang with somebody, right? Without having to be like, I gotta get, if this conversation between us doesn't result in me getting you to change somehow, buy something from me, I change your mind in some significant way about some important topic or something, I teach you something, you teach me something. If this doesn't happen, somehow we're not having meaningful connection, right? And I was just all out of whack about that. So she helped adjust my, thinking about relationships and what healthy relationships are. Because, of course, what I was just describing was a little nutty. It's okay to just hang out with people and not have to do things or be something or make something happen, Those are just a couple of the things that she's taught me. Emotional stuff. I mean, the whole... I was reminded about 3 or 4 years ago, she and I did a whole podcast on emotional needs. And that was when I was first really diving into that whole concept of, hey, I think this really is, important stuff for what makes up how we behave. And she was right there like, yeah, let's talk about, bang, 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 and was able to help me formulate my ideas to put together my RAM model. There's no way that would have happened if I hadn't known and been working with Rachel all these years. So she's been amazing. Yeah, exactly. She knew exactly what fair gaming was. Yeah, Miles, I see your comment there on the getting added to the email list. Yeah, good luck with getting off of there. That is hard to do. But try, right? Just contact them, tell them I want you to stop reaching out. Okay, let's move on here. Young Matador. Hey, Chris. Let me see if I can make this even bigger so I can actually read this here. Got these new glasses, and you've seen me struggling ever since I got them because I'm still trying to find the right focal point here with these progressive lenses for the screen there in front of me. All right. I'll just read it from here. Would DM be bold enough to refuse paying the hackers? Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. It's a catch-22 situation for him. I think he'd be disgusted even considering paying them, but he's obsessed with secrecy. Yeah, well, yeah. The problem with paying hackers, blackmail money, or paying anybody who's blackmailing you is, that just... game theory wise, it sort of reinforces their motivation to continue to get you to give them money, right? It doesn't motivate them to shut it down and stop. It motivates them to continue. Blackmail is a crafty, horrible thing to have happen to you, for sure, under any circumstances. Yeah, I suppose that's true, George. I don't see any scenario where David Miscavige pays people to do, right, for that. I see a lot more scenarios of David Miscavige imagining he's going to take these people down or go after them and spending, exorbitant amounts of money to track these people down or something. I could see him taking that approach. I'm not saying he's going to, go pull some special set of skills on these guys, do some Liam Neeson or something and take down, Chi-Lin. I don't think that's what's in the cards at all. But I think that's what he would want to do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Miscavige is going to be like, oh, okay, let's cut him a check. I don't see that happening in any universe. We can bring quantum physics, multiverse theory into this, I suppose, but I don't see it happening. All right, let's carry on. What is this? Autistic accountant? I think that's what that says. Does the church contract with any companies to handle their internet security? Not that I'm aware of. As far as I know, security within the church is handled computer-wise by INCOMM. Now, I can't say for sure that that's the case now. It was, and I would not have been privy to the fact that private consultants would have been hired, but I spoke with and worked with the man who actually did do that work in INCOMM. Tall guy. I think he grew up in Australia. Smart guy, right? Super smart, nerdy, geeky, all his life computer guy, right? But he was one guy. And he's not a match for... No single person is, a match for, these hacker groups. So I think David Miscavige is learning. I think he's getting a real object lesson right now in modern internet security. I don't think they were prepared for this, and I don't think they were. I don't think it took the big brains to figure out how to hack Scientology. I think Scientology thought they were in a position where they were unhackable or where they were overconfident. I do believe that would be the case because that's how they are about most things. And they wouldn't have any reason to suspect otherwise, because until it happens to you, you don't realize how vulnerable or weak you actually really are. Pretty much across the boards, people, companies, they react similarly to this. So see if I get anything else. Yeah, nothing really else I can say to answer that question. I don't really have any other information to throw out on that. TM asks, I was researching the, I just cannot. I was researching the free zone Scientologists and heard they have made OT levels beyond 8, allegedly up to OT 40. Do you know anything about that? I heard that. Yes, I heard that. And you know, when you're in my position and of course yours, right, where you realize all of this is just made up. You know, none of this is the result of research in any real plausible sense of the word, right? In any scientific sense of the word. Scientology's research is it truly, I mean, I mean it. It's laughably bad. I mean, it's really bad. L. Ron Hubbard, when he play acted at being a scientist or being a researcher, he really had no idea how to even fake it well. The only reason Scientologists go along with Hubbard is because on scientific stuff is because they themselves are either so ignorant on the topic that they just don't know that he's talking nonsense to them, or they will maybe consciously, maybe not so consciously, but they will filter his, you know, the bullshit they recognize as bullshit, and they'll think to themselves, oh well, you know, either one, he's if they sense it's bullshit, then they come up with some way to rationalize it. It's old, you know, Hubbard didn't know modern science, he just didn't know about this or that, or haha, he's just making a joke. I mean, there's a million ways you can rework reality to make it make sense to you, and people do that with Hubbard and his scientific bullshit all the time to make it make sense. It's called motivated reasoning. It's a thing, people do it. You can look it up, right? If you're motivated to think a certain way because you're being paid to, or because you have ideological or religious or personal bias that, you know, demands that this thing must be true, or must be false. It works both ways, right? Then you can motivate yourself. You can make your reasoning work as a tool for you to make anything make sense. I say all of this because free zone Scientologists do that with Scientology, coming back around to, you know, to them now, right? So they're fully invested in Scientology, and whatever cherry-picked version of Scientology they run with. Every single individual free zone Scientologist is running with their own special version of Scientology that exists only for them. And they have the ability to disagree with the parts that they don't like, right? So indie Scientology is a very, very different thing in the free zone from what you get in official churches of Scientology. They might even use similar language and stuff, but it's not the same thing, really, because all of the authoritarian trappings and the ethics system and the reporting system and so many other things, OSA, that's not part of what's going on in the free zone. And when they try to bring the ethics stuff or the OSA stuff in, they always hash it horribly. I mean, they ruin it right away, right? They mess it all up, which is good. You don't want them replicating the Nazi Scientology reporting system outside of Scientology. It's a good thing they're not able to replicate it, but they're not, you know, and who would want to? So that's what I can say about some of that. Yeah, so the fact that they're going on up to OT 40, yeah, okay, yeah, I heard about that a couple, I don't know, month or two ago or something. I just laughed. So it was hilarious. Like, okay, yeah, sure, that's the problem. There aren't enough OT levels. That's what it is. All right, X-Cyan asks, what is the Lucifer effect, and why is it called that? Okay, great question, and I'm actually going to look this up because it's a book by Philip Zimbardo. If any of you have ever heard of the infamous Stanford prison experiment, then you've heard of Philip Zimbardo. And back in 1971, he was the guy who designed and ran for about 5 days or something, right? It didn't go on for that long. The Stanford prison experiment. And there's been a lot of controversy, a lot of this, that, the other thing about, the conclusions or what results occurred and how real were they and all of this and all that. Everybody's got opinions about this, and they're all very, very interesting. My take on it has been a bit more meta. I'm more interested in all of it. Like, not only am I interested in what happened, but I'm also interested in what was said about it, and I'm interested in people's takes on it. I've looked at all of this stuff, right? It's very, very interesting. Anyway, so The Lucifer Effect is a book that Zimbardo wrote in 2007. So he does this whole experiment, and it's very controversial, and there's varying degrees of, reputational damage and credibility issues with this man, following him for his entire life because of this thing, right? And I'm not here to praise him or castigate him, right? Or trash him. I'm just saying that it exists. This controversy exists. And the book, The Lucifer Effect, Understanding How Good People Turn Evil, is the 2007 book that he wrote. And he's a social psychologist, by the way, by trade and training. So he broke down in this book, and it was actually a really interesting book, and I read most of it for my coercive control program. And I was absolutely fascinated by it because Philip Zimbardo breaks down in 2007 a step-by-step, here is how you take a group and turn them into something horrible. Here's how you take people and turn them into the worst versions of themselves. And it's credible information. It's like, yeah, that's how that works. Yes, Philip got it right, And that's what the book is about, how ordinary good people can be transformed into perpetrators of evil under specific situational and systemic pressures. And that last bit is the most important point. Zimbardo makes the point that it is not about you being born with some demon inside of you or some evil, twisted, code in your genetics or some flaw in your DNA that causes you to be, the next serial killer or something, right? That's not how ordinary people are made into monsters. And if you read Christopher Browning, he wrote a book called Ordinary Men. I believe it was called Ordinary Men. And it was along a similar line, right? Ordinary Men, right? Which was about how police battalions were turned into murder squads in and around Nazi Germany, right? How policemen were turned into, executioners. And it's really disturbing reading because it shows you that it's not about good hats, black hats, white hats, good guys, bad guys. It's about situations. It's about context. It's about putting people into situations where they are convinced because of social pressures and because of the rules and because of the roles that we have or take on in various situations, we can become versions of ourselves that we believe are good, rational, moral versions of ourselves, but we end up doing things that are destructive and harmful, blatantly, like incontrovertibly bad things. And normal, regular, good people can be made to do this 24/7. It's not hard to do. If you design the system or you figure out the context or you figure out the rules and you put people in it, and I'm not talking about some like weird Martian scenario. I mean like a work environment, a hobby club, a family situation. You can create dynamics or context or situations where things go really, really bad, and they can go really bad really fast. And it's the situation and the rule set and the context and the agreements and all of that, the social stuff that's making it that way, not that you stuck some evil person in the middle of all of this and let them loose. That you could do that, and there are people who are kind of bad people who have bad effects on people around them. We talk about them all the time. But his point with the Lucifer effect is you don't need somebody like that around to get a bunch of people to do shit that is really fucked up. In a nutshell, right? And that was Zimbardo's basic thesis of the book, and it was really well argued. I thought, I obviously agree with this theory and his ideas around it. So that's what I got on that. Oh yeah. We're going to talk about consequences on this hack. We are going to get back to that, but we're going to go into some history for that. So I wanted to take up some of your questions here first. Okay, George Smiley, do INCOMM programs run on Windows? Yeah, or does Scientology have its own operating system? They do not have their own operating system, and surprisingly, they never really took that route that I'm aware of. It would have been an interesting take, but in the 1980s, they were running on Unix systems with terminals. The INCOMM systems back in the day were pretty primitive. Unix is not a primitive operating system, but that's what they were kind of using behind the scenes. They could have, when Linux came out or something, they could have actually gotten smart and come up with their own Scientology operating system. That would have been actually really, really smart for them in terms of security measures, but it didn't occur to them to go that deep. Let's see. They have Windows programs. For example, the entire OCA personality test system was originally a DOS-based program, and then they converted it over into a Windows-based system. There is a group that put together a Windows-based statistics system called MasterTech, which was a non-church entity. And then INCOMM wrote their own internal stat system, which we used internally, and that was all a Windows-based system. The entire data file system, all of the scanned documents and everything at the org level too, that's all Windows-based. So it is a Windows-based network, yeah. I think they use like Apache servers on the network or something, and they do Windows-based networking, but I'm not sure what they're using. Like I said, I should have called my boy and talked to him about this. I didn't even think about it. I could have gotten a better rundown for you guys on the computer stuff. But what I'll do is when Alex and I talk, if Alex and I do a show later this week, I'll make sure I talk to my computer guy so I can bring that knowledge to you when we do that show. Okay. XIN, why did L. Ron Hubbard go into hiding, and where did he go after he died? Okay, when L. Ron Hubbard went off into hiding in the early 1980s, he went off in a Bluebird motorhome and drove around in the Pacific Northwest for a period of time. I think for a year or two or something like that. He was driving around in this motorhome, this Bluebird, big, decked out motorhome, right? And he was just kind of doing that. Then he landed or arrived or settled in on a ranch in Creston, California, which was just outside of San Luis Obispo, sort of central California area, literally an hour from where I was going to high school. He settled there, and that's where he ended up dying. After he died, they cremated him, I think within a literally record time or something, like within a day or two, and so as to prevent any investigatory shenanigans. They needed to get rid of that body right quick, and so they did. And that was the story of L. Ron Hubbard. All right, Supernatural, 1972, or super something here. I swear it's not my glasses. It's something funky in this place. My question. Superman. Superman 1972. Okay. Sorry about that. Hi, Chris. My question is, how does Scientology service people who are deaf? Are there Sea Org members who are educated in sign language? Oh no. No, they don't deal with people who are deaf. I never saw one instance of that in all the time I was in Scientology. I never saw one time that somebody who was deaf was trying to get Scientology services. There was a deep sea underwater diver who had lost hearing in one ear because of a pressure accident. who was a Scientologist. But as far as deaf, were that to come up, I could see an auditor learning sign language to work with somebody, but you can't audit somebody who's deaf on an e-meter because you got to hear what's being said so that the read can happen. You can't sign somebody and watch the needle for an instant read. I mean, I guess you could, boink, right? And assume that as soon as you're done signing, the needle's supposed to read or something, but that would just throw off the entire auditing process, and you can't get to the solo auditing levels until you're audited to clear, and get on up to the OT levels. So, yeah, I don't see that that's possible, that you could be deaf and be a Scientologist. You can learn Scientology. You can certainly go in and obviously read all the books, do all the stuff, but you can't get audited. I don't know how to do it. You could do objective auditing. Obviously, you could do like that, but that's, even the setup for that requires an e-meter to start the session and end the session, the examiner and all that. You could go to the examiner without having to say anything or hear anything, but you would not be able to have auditing administered to you. I just don't know how you could do that. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, and no, there's nobody in the Sea Org educated in. If they are, it's by accident. They're not. There's nobody in the Sea Org. They're learning sign language for the public. Hey, Jono. George Smiley, what history or sociology books did you read for your degree? Anything by Max Weber? No, I did not read Max Weber. That's an author whose name I'm familiar with, but don't remember reading. Just looking him up right now real fast. German sociologist. Oh. Make sure I know what I'm talking about here before I go blabbering on at a mad rate. Yeah, no, we definitely did not read Max Weber. Interesting. Looking through some of his work and stuff. He's got a really extensive Wikipedia page. Jesus, there's a lot here. Okay, social action was the central focus of his sociology. Okay. Oh yeah, well, it sounds like some of his ideas could certainly have influenced some of my thinking, but not directly. Okay. We didn't read history as such. I studied the Magdalene asylums as a historical context for coercive control. I certainly studied some other history from the 1960s and 70s about human potential movement, primal scream, est, landmark, that whole movement and what was going on around that time period. I've read pretty extensively on, but on the program, but that was after the program. I didn't really read that much about that, except what I needed to for a paper I was writing comparing contexts of coercive control. Yeah, probably the most historical stuff we read was Lifton. Because in academia, stuff from the 1950s and 60s is ancient fucking history, right? Like, people do not want you going back that far at all and citing stuff or referring to stuff. But, Lifton's seminal when it comes to thought reform and the psychology of totalism. You can't ignore Lifton, so you end up going to that kind of stuff. But that's about as historical as we got on, at least on material that's coming to my mind right now that we covered. Okay, Angry Chode. How long did it take you for you to stop thinking like a Scientologist after you left Scientology? I think about that question for a second. Because it's onion layers, and I fooled myself so many times and told you guys so many times, oh, this is it, right? And and I can look back and see why and how I did that, but I was goofy, right? It's onion layers. Like you get, one layer, oh, this is the last time I'm going to have to deal with this. 3 months later, another thing came up. 2 weeks later, there was this other thing. Okay, finally. Okay, I'm never going to have to think about emotions ever again. I can finally express my emotions. I'm no longer feeling held down by Hubbard's tone scale anymore, right? How many times did I say that? Probably 20. If I didn't say it on this mic, I said it in my own head to myself, right? There were so many times when I was so sure I was over and past something, and then some other little part of it comes up out of fucking nowhere, the abyss of your fucking subconscious. Here's a new monster for you, right? And it's like, God damn, when does this end? It goes deep, right? This stuff goes deep. So when do I stop thinking like a Scientologist? I'm going to say when I realized that rejection sensitivity dysphoria was a thing. I had recovered from Scientology before I stopped thinking like a Scientologist. And there's all kinds of contradictions in this. Because it's like, what? How does that make any sense? But it does, because I wasn't plagued by the emotional or psychological nightmares or weird emotional reactions or triggers and stuff. So much of that just like gradually over the years went by the wayside, some of it faster than others. Education always helping push more and more and more stuff off the side of the cliff. You know what I mean? Like it's because you just accumulate so much crap in a cult. There's just so much crap. And stuff pops up, and you're pushing it off the side of the and then more stuff pops up. So I think the thing about the rejection sensitivity that hit me hardest was realizing that it was me. ADHD is something I am not going to get rid of, right? So it's much me as my eye color or my nose or something, right? So I can't say it's not me, but to realize what part of me is manifesting, this kind of that happens sometimes, was really, really, really clarifying. Because for whatever reason, for me personally, that differentiation of anger and rejection and that sensitivity to it, and also learning that I'm probably high on a scale. Let me make sure I get the exact phrase right. Highly sensitive people. Sensory processing sensitivity. SPS. Realizing I'm in that category of people who experience perceptually, neurologically, experience things at a more sensitive level than most people do. And that's not at all a good or a bad thing. It just is a thing, right? The goods are gooder, but the bads are badder, right? So it's not a good or a bad thing that you have a higher level of sensitivity processing than other people do. It doesn't make your life better than other people's lives. It's just something that you deal with. And so learning that and learning about the ADHD and the rejection sensitivity stuff, I say all of this because what that did for me is it was really, in a way that I know is a final capping thing. Now that I've been through 12 years of this, I know the difference between, that sort of temporary, thing you get versus when you really have dealt with something and you're just not going to see it again. And there are tons and tons and tons of things over the years that I've dealt with from my Scientology experience that I don't need to think about or look at ever again. It's a done deal. The emotional suppression, for example, the whole mechanism of how I did it, how I would recognize when and then suppress the shit out of my emotions, not let myself feel that stuff. All of that is years old stuff. That's gone. I'm never going back to any of that. But the explanations that would plague me, from my earlier life experiences about some of my ADHD and sensitivity stuff, I had some wrong answers. I had some wrong ideas about why I was that way. And I would get really down on myself about it. So I think it took that bits to dump, those kind of Scientology judgments. And that was cool. So that's my answer today. Yeah, like SP Crusader. Yeah, I don't have any urge anymore at any level to be quiet during a time when somebody's hurt, to jump to an assist. I no longer think to myself in any way, if I get sick, oh, there must be an SP, I'm PTS. All those labels, none of that is in my headspace anymore. It's completely flushed. That I don't even have a momentary thought anymore about, oh, PTS, oh, this, oh, that. None of that is there. So that I shed many, many years ago. That was really nice to get rid of that crap. Okay. Okay, let's carry on here. Rebecca, how many animals... How are animals seen? Oh, okay. God, I got to get this fixed. Okay. How are animals seen in Scientology? Is there tech for them? Are they reincarnated? Does my dog have any BTs she needs to clear? Okay. So, yeah, I think the last time I answered this was a few years ago. So let's go over this real fast. Animals are seen by individual Scientologists as special snowflake creatures that have a thetan in them because clearly this is my pet and look at the way he looks so significantly at me and you can just feel the love and you can feel the theta. And so their cat, their dog, obviously there's a thetan there, right, in their estimation. But generally speaking, Hubbard says animals don't generally have thetans connected with them. Animals have animal minds, which are referred to in Dianetics as the somatic mind. It's sort of the basic mind that runs all the sort of body stuff. Hubbard had very, very primitive ideas about the brain and how it's divided up. And so he divided up his mental model of the mind in a similarly primitive way, right? So I guess the mind that runs the heartbeat, this kind of stuff is all somatic mind stuff. And that's how Hubbard thought about animals or pets. He talked fondly of a cat he had when he was writing Dianetics and how he told stories about how he had trained this cat to keep its paw on the manuscript pages so they wouldn't fly off or something. I don't think any of his stories about animals were true. I think Hubbard didn't really like animals very much because generally people like him don't. So no, there's no tech for them specifically that I remember. There's no animal assist or something like that. There's no special regard for animals that I remember. You could adapt anything in Scientology to them if you wanted to, but I don't remember there being any official anything on it. Animals are not reincarnated, no. They're just genetic life forms, right? Purely genetic. There's no theta spirituality sort of thing connected with it. Hubbard makes the point that theta itself is the energy or the component that introduces or brings life to inanimate energy. So obviously animals must be imbued with some level of theta. And Hubbard said when he did his tomato experiments, I'm making this motion for the little, when he stuck the butterfly clips into the tomatoes and registered them on an e-meter, he said that the quality or nature of life energy is the same, whether you're talking about thetans and people or plants and animals. But he didn't really go into any long dissertation or conclusions about that, at least not that mattered to anybody in Scientology. There was never anything special out of those experiments except that one single statement, that the nature of life itself is the same, whether plant, animal, or people, right? So no, your dog does not have any BTs that need to be cleared. You're safe for now. Okay. See something here. Oh. Well. Just checking in on the on things as we're going. All right. Yeah, I don't think there's any chance that Scientology pays this ransom, by the way. All right, and we have questions just keep coming in. This is great. All right, well, I'm just going to keep going. Ex-Scion, Trump removed MLK Jr. Day. Yes, he did, and Juneteenth from national parks, free days, and added his birthday. Does he have high hopes of smashing his name into history so violently that it will take a legendary form? That's good. Yeah. Yeah. You understand this is just another aspect of the organic narcissistic personality, right? It's what they do. It's so sad to watch a demented narcissist be in charge of government policy in any format, any context, anytime in history, anytime, anywhere. To watch it play out and watch this kind of thing go on is it's really sad. Old Bay. Given his behavior, do you think Aaron Smith-Levin is a Scientology plant whose mission is to cause discord, or is he just a complete mess of a person? He's an alcoholic. He's an alcoholic wife beater, right? Whoa. Okay. Okay. Since I just go through my questions and don't even sort of pre-scan or whatever, I don't know that I would have particularly chosen to have taken this one up. I'm not going to deride Aaron here today. It's not my role or mission in life to have a YouTube channel and trash other people who are, in the world. I'd rather educate and inform than spend time doing that. To answer the question, because it does deserve an answer. I mean, you're asking me a legit question. Is he a plant? I do not believe so. No. I will go on record publicly as saying, if I had to answer yes or no, I would say no. There's a great deal of behavior, and there's a great many targets that Aaron attacks that are very much something Osa would applaud him doing. There's a lot of things he does that Osa really likes. There is also a lot of things he does that Osa does not like, which is why he ended up in the situation that he's in right now. And it's a bit of a mess. And he is, a bit of a hot mess. Yeah, that is a problem. But it's not my problem. Because what happens over there doesn't affect my work anymore. Let's move on. Not a mouse. What is on your necklace? Thanks for asking. Nobody's ever asked before. This is something I got, if you can see that, at a fair in Minnesota the year I got out of Scientology in 2013. I bought this at Ren Fair. I think I bought this at the first Ren Fair I ever went to. It's a vampiric symbol. It's a little vampire thing, but it signifies transformation. And I just thought it was the most appropriate thing that I could possibly wear, getting out of a cult. And I kept it because I keep doing it. I keep this because it reminds me to keep going. Xion, can you give us any teasers into your new book to be released? Well, I read a little bit of it to you before. Now, we've revised it a few times since then. But I think what I read to you was... okay. What I will tell you about my new book is that it is 20 chapters that cover 20 things, 20 subjects or topics that I really, 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 really wish somebody had talked to me about or told me about before I ever got into the ex-cult space or ex-cult world or trying to deal with recovering from Scientology. I really, really wish that somebody had sat me down and said, look, man, here's some stuff you need to know about trauma. Here's some stuff you need to know about ex-cult spaces. Just a little heads up for you, right? It can get a little dramatic. Here's some things you might want to know about coercive control. Yeah, it's a thing. Here's how it works, right? Like some breakdown of this stuff. That's really what this book is. And I really, really hope it appeals to people because I want it to be that for them, that thing that they need to get to go, oh, okay, good. All right. And just enough to put you on the course, on the road, right? Like, it's not the be-all, end-all of my chapter on trauma is not everything there is to know about trauma. But it's a breakdown of the basics, so it gives you okay. All right, when people talk to me about trauma, this is what they mean, right? Not this other stuff over here or, whatever. So, there you go. Okay. Okay, autistic accountant. Will you work with Alex, the MJRAF, and Tony, increase the risk that the Church of Scientology will target you for increased fair gaming? Oh, will me working with Alex and these folks increase that? Oh, no. I've been out of Scientology for 12 years, talking every week. I'm posting trash talking Scientology, posting facts, posting educational information to help people get over Scientology. And, they haven't really come after me much. I have a small channel and they don't really, pay much attention to me. And I'm completely fine with that. I'm not in this to be targeted by Scientology, but nothing I'm doing right now is going to increase the non-existence of the fair gaming that is coming my way, right? Scientology doesn't care about me, and I'm okay with that. TM, is there any concept or processes from Scientology that you still find useful in day-to-day life? No. In a word, I've answered that question in such detail, even recently. I'll refer you to a couple weeks ago, even last week, I think, where I've given some breakdowns on this answer on this question. So check it out. But I will just say right now, no, I don't find any use in anything in Scientology in my day-to-day life. There is nothing I'm holding on to, nothing I'm still using, no little book they have that I pull out from time to time and look at. Nothing like that. Scientology is completely flushed from my entire existence. Now it's replaced with fighting cults, right? All of them, not just Scientology. I don't really even care that much about Scientology as such. But it's still the thing that's easiest for me to talk about because it's still the thing I'm most familiar with because, of course, I was, in it for so many years. All right, TM also asks, what happened to Hubbard's body? Is it in cold storage somewhere? No, they burned it up. It was cremated. George Smiley, do Scientologists know about the tomato experiments? He looked completely ridiculous. As I mentioned, no, we did know about it. And it's a little mysterious, right? In other words, there's no write-up, there's no bulletin, there's no book, there's no lecture where Hubbard breaks down all the stuff. I think there's that one line I told you, or just a few minutes ago, about how the nature of life isn't any different. And that's all I remember from him talking about any of those things. I believe that comes out of, was it Home and Gardens? There was a group, there was an interview he did. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. Thanks for the update, Hans. I'll have to check that out after the show. Because we're not going into that drama right now on this channel. I'm not going there. Okay. Tomato experiments. I think it was, what was it? Was it Home and Gardens? I think it was Home and Gardens interviewed Hubbard out at St. Hill in the early 60s. And that was where he talked about those experiments. I think it was in those interviews. And it was received as, dude is crazy, right? With the pictures with him with the gloves holding the tomatoes plugged into the e-meter. And I think he thought he was really on to something impressive and the world was going to be like, what? What's he doing? What's all that about? He was looking for a viral moment and it eluded him much to Hubbard's chagrin, as they say. He was pissed off. He was so pissed. When that whole thing flopped, Hubbard, that's it. Fuck the media. Bruh. But then he talked to Charlie Nairn in 69, right? So it's like Hubbard was just all... Young Matador, why on earth is the Church of Scientology still supporting Danny Masterson given what he's been convicted of? What does the church think is a benefit for them supporting Masterson in his appeal? I don't know. I'm not sure beyond what we've talked about many times between me and Tony with Masterson's connections and family and money base that sits there. There's a lot. And there's a lot of people, Lana Masterson, Masterson's mom, Masterson's stepdad, other people in that group who are, Scientology adjacent or Scientology connected. But that's guesswork on my part as to why it is that Scientology is maintaining some degree of allegiance to Masterson. But it's not hard to imagine if you think he's innocent, right? If you can just imagine in your mind that Danny Masterson's been framed and set up, and this is all just the work of these evil women who were just out to get him, and they contrived this ridiculous conspiracy, and they took him to court, and they convinced a judge, and they brought Scientology in. Rah, rah, rah. I mean, you can really go all, blah, 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 about how much a victim Danny Masterson was, and he was just railroaded by the system. And if you take that point of view, which is easy enough to do, then Scientology can take it too. You know? I don't know what it is that Masterson gives them, or, you know, that keeps that in place. Why they don't just cut him loose, I don't know. But they don't. Right? For whatever reason, they're loyal. And maybe it's some personal connection, you know, between Miscavige and Masterson, for all we know. I mean, you know, we can't pretend that we know everything there is to know about what's going on behind the scenes with these guys. We only know as much as we can conjecture or put together or take apart from what they tell us. All we know right now is that Scientology definitely seems to be trying to get Masterson out of jail. And if he is found innocent and on appeal and he gets released, the church will welcome him back with open arms and see it was all a setup and blah, 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 right? They would, so that's the outcome they want. I don't know why, but that's the outcome they want. Ex-Scion, do you plan in the future to become a licensed therapist? Not right now. I didn't plan to get this degree either, though, so who knows what my future holds, but I do not have plans right now to do that. It would involve expenditure of time and money that I don't have. And so that's why I'm not doing that. Okay. Old Bay, what about Clearwater Chad? Is Clearwater Chad a plant for Scientology? Not that I'm aware of. Anything is possible, but not that I'm aware of. I've never seen anything that would indicate to me that Clearwater Chad is working for Scientology. I think he's somebody who has a sense of humor that is radically different from mine, and I'll just very generously just say that. Ex-Scion, did you never know a mission holder named David St. Lawrence? He's an independent now. I did not know him. That name sounds vaguely familiar to me, but I did not know him. Don't know where he was from. And OBG Foster just got back from GalaxyCon Columbus with William Shatner. Are you envious? Yes, I am. You even have a photo and a signature. I kind of hate you a little bit right now. Not really, but kind of. It would be cool to meet William Shatner. I'd be down for that. That'd be cool. I know he's kind of got a reputation as a bit of a dick. I don't mean that I want to go be best pals with him. I just think it would be cool to meet him. The man personifies so many things to me as an actor. I mean, his roles, you know, what he did as an actor. There's a lot. There's a lot there, and he'd be a really, really fun interview. He would be a really fun interview, regardless of what kind of personality he has. He'd be fun to talk to. Damn, there was actually a free Dana Masterson petition on Facebook. Wow. Wow, I didn't know they went that far. Yeah, that's fucked up. But that's, you know, again, just adopt the idea that he was railroaded, and, you know, it's easy to imagine that. Okay, I wanted to talk quickly about, let's go ahead and talk about consequences for this hack a little bit, because I want to talk about this with you guys, because there's another side of this that no one is talking about. At least nobody that I watch or listen to, which doesn't mean nobody, right? But I'm going to talk about it. In the 1990s, there was a leak of a memo onto the internet back in the alt-religion Scientology message board days, when the internet was message boards and not the World Wide Web. Scientology was a hot topic and was discussed with ex-Scientologists and non-Scientologists in this message board group. And the Church of Scientology monitored it daily, closely. infiltrated it, watched it, right? Looking for the X's, looking for people critical of Scientology. There's a whole story to this, and there's a lot to it, which I'm not going to necessarily tell you all about today. But part of this story is that a person, an unnamed individual, who we do know, and it's no secret or anything. I'm just saying that at the time, nobody knew who did this, but somebody leaked a memo, a report from OSA onto the internet. And this was a catastrophic security breach. Miscavige was pissed, but he was also on the hunt. He thought this was a golden opportunity to go find who this person was and enact some Scientology justice. And he sent 2 missionaries down to INCOMM at the PAC base. INCOMM is the International Network of Computer Organized Management, which is that unit of the Sea Org that takes care of the computers, as we've covered. That whole place, numbers-wise, what I have written down or found from reports at the time is that there were 40 people working at INCOMM, and by the time this whole thing was over, it was down to like 10, if that. And I know they didn't take INCOMM apart because INCOMM kept going. I worked with INCOMM for years in the Sea Org. This all went down in 95, 96 time period when I was first getting into the Sea Org. And I had no idea. Nobody on the PAC base knew what had happened, but INCOMM went on lockdown. And when they went on lockdown, they were sequestered away, and they were, for 4 straight months, nobody saw hide or hair of anybody in INCOMM or anybody connected with it. And the ethics mission that went down there was, kind of Scientology Abu Ghrabi, right? It was really bad. It was like these people were being, they weren't being physically tortured, so I shouldn't really compare it to something like that. But for Scientology, it was a whole new level of real torturous behavior towards Sea Org members, right? Those Sea Org members were treated like absolute garbage. Their phones were taken away. They were not allowed to talk to anybody. It was a violation of their human and legal rights. They were held in captivity for 4 straight months. And they were not asked whether they wanted to be part of that or not. That was just what was done to them. As a result, they got rid of a bunch. They had them on very, very menial physical labor for this time. They were doing this very bizarre decoppering and copper collection stuff, and they're just doing a bunch of weird, odd job stuff. And the guy who leaked the memo was a guy who worked at INCOMM. Nobody knew what was up. And he was doing it because he was in the chat forums on his own bat. Nobody was directing him to do this. Nobody wanted him doing this. But he was the nighttime security guy who basically was the network admin, did the backups and stuff like that. That's all this guy was. And he was in the chat rooms at night, and he was, oh, you're wrong about this, and I'm going to prove it, right? And he went and got this document and threw it up on the internet. And it didn't even occur to him, right, that somebody would be pissed about this. So apparently he got quite raked over the coals. I don't know precisely what happened to this guy, but it was pretty bad. And I have here actually a little bit of, it was called the Valentine's Day Massacre. And here it is. Sea Org, on Valentine's Day in the 1990s, 95, we were briefed at the international base. We were briefed. This is a write-up from person who identified themselves as thoughtful, some Sea Org member. In 1995, we were briefed at INT on a major security breach that had taken place at INCOMM. Down in LA, weeks later, I saw a hunted, pale platoon of INCOMM crew being marched from a backlines corridor into a doorway. Back up at INT, David Miscavige bragged at a briefing to INT base staff that he was going to catch the spy and that the staff were undergoing an RTC ethics program that Miscavige was personally directing. As a note to these and any other XSO who were coerced to sign contracts, oh yeah, they're saying here if you signed a contract and never got a copy of the contract, it's null and void. You don't have to worry about all that non-disclosure. And this is basically described or run down in the message boards as one of the most Gestapo-like activities that Miscavige ever engaged in prior to, of course, the Hole. This was sort of the precursor to the Hole, where he, was spending 4 months breaking these people down. And it was Liz Ingber and Suzanne Bolstad who ran that ethics mission. And this is a write-up. Again, these are not my words. This is a write-up from Karen de la Carriere, actually, that I pulled off of one of the message boards where she talks about this whole thing. This is a post she wrote. And I'm just going to read a little bit about what Karen wrote to give you the kind of flavor of what it was like for the folks on the inside. Again, I'm quoting from Karen here. A mission arrived to get ethics in on the alleged criminal out-ethics scum that were INCOMM Sea Org members. Liz Ingber and Suzanne Bolstad were the head honchos. Okay, and this is what Karen wrote. Liz Ingber, this woman is the cold chrome steel. This is a Hubbard quote, cold chrome steel. She's detached, emotionless, cruel, unable to feel, but happy to mete out cruelty. I have known her personally for more than 3 decades, and I will state that she is an unconscionable, evil witch. Liz Ingber orders INCOMM staff into 2 lines, all males in one line, all females in another line. Circling in between the lines were a bunch of international missionaires with lanyards and the fruit salad of colored insignia, and they carried batons similar to German swagger sticks. And I saw ethics officers carry these things around. Every single SO member is handed a manila envelope, told to write their name on it and empty their pockets, and if wearing pagers, it went into the envelope. The SO member then had to spread their legs and spread out their arms while a metal detecting wand was frisked over the body from head to toe. This kept on going for a while. A new person would enter the room. They were ordered to empty their pockets, spread eagle, metal detection, go stand in the line. Liz Ingber called the room to attention in a toneless, disassociated, unemotional, cold voice spat out, "You are all assigned a condition of confusion. You are all suppressive, with hidden crimes of magnitude for allowing a suppressive person to infiltrate INCOMM. Your daily massive crimes have blinded your perception, which is the only reason you did not detect the infiltrator. You obviously do not care if an SP destroys the church. You are hereby under house arrest. You will not leave the base. You will not leave INCOMM. You will not talk to your family. You are under total lockdown. Your crimes permitted your minds to be so blinded to this enormous threat that could have taken down Scientology in totality. Man's only hope. Happy Valentine's Day. All right, so good. Thank you for those screenshots. I'll check them out. That was what these guys were being rounded up and told on day 1. And it just, proceeded from there. And I read all this to you not as history, but as probable current events. And I just want to kind of set the stage a little bit for you as to what's probably happening right now to the Sea Org members at the UK base. Every single, the entire base is probably on lockdown right now, exactly as I just described as to how they would have done it. They would have brought everybody into the hall and they would have just, okay, here's what's going on, right? Now, I don't know how long this hack has been going on, though, with the IIS event and this hack, and maybe the hack happened a week or 2 or 3 ago. Like, the timing makes all of this a little bit interesting as to exactly what could be going on. But given the fact that Miscavige dealt with this personally and directly back in the 90s, I see absolutely no reason why he wouldn't take the exact same tack now and do the exact same things. But this is a bigger thing than just some memo being leaked on ARS and some message board, which is the equivalent of a Reddit comment right now, compared to an international hacker group holding your entire UK system for ransom. This is orders of magnitude bigger than anything Miscavige has ever had to deal with before. So in a way, we're in uncharted territory, and we can look to the past to see, well, what's he probably doing? He's probably doing this. But he's got real world problems of an IIS event and flag and all these other, and legal cases and other things, other balls that he's got juggling in the air right now. So can he afford to put the entire UK base on lockdown? Can he afford to put all of INCOMM on lockdown again? Because they're going to be at the receiving end of this. INCOMM's responsible for all the computers. And of course, what about international management and the echelons between INCOMM and the UK base? Who's responsible? All right, there's probably about 200 people in there, 150 people or so, to target, to go after. And who's to say they're not all responsible at the end of the day, according to the way Miscavige thinks about things. So I just wanted to point all of that out because my heart right now is feeling a little bit for those poor Sea Org members. Because there's a bunch of innocent people who've dedicated their lives to forwarding Scientology and have been working their asses off for slave wages and under pretty coercive conditions. And now their life is about to become 100 times worse because of this hacking group and because of what they're exposing, right? We have exposure of getting down to the brass tacks of what this exposure is right now based on the screenshots we've seen. And again, this is not a group that's familiar with Scientology, so they may not know what to bring out and expose. But what they did show are violations of visa immigration law that are not small-time things within the UK system. Numerous, repeated instances, just in the couple screenshots we saw, of people working without visas or being brought over to work illegally in the UK. This not only will result or could result in fines for individual visa breakages, right, of each incident, but it could remove Scientology's ability to have immigrant workers at all. That's potentially the threat to them on that, is the UK could just go, nope, the UK government could just pull all that. A bigger deal, I think, and that's a pretty big deal, but an even bigger potential exposure right now within just what we know, is that the United States, the Church of Scientology International, is a United States corporation, as I understand it, and it has been operating business-wise, spending and receiving money in the United Kingdom, American entities. And yet, in the UK, the Church of Scientology is supposed to operate under this Australian corporation called COSRECI. And that's supposed to be where all the official Scientology finance stuff happens, as I understand it. If I'm wrong about that, that's my understanding of the situation. So when the United States, if the IAS or the Church of Scientology International or Flag Land Base, these are American corporations. If they come in and start doing business in the UK and they don't notify the UK government that they're doing that, then the UK government is denied taxation revenue, right? The UK government should be taxing some of that profit. That's called tax evasion. If the Church of Scientology doesn't tell the UK government that they're making money in the UK and not paying the UK government, that's tax evasion. And that's a very serious thing for a group proclaiming to be a church, trying to get religious status. Oh, really? And you're tax evaders? How interesting, right? So that is another point of massive exposure for them right now, just within what we know. So we'll have to see where this goes. Is somebody going to take those screenshots and be able to begin an investigation based on that? Probably not, right? How do we know that that's really a document from within the church? You know what I mean? Like how that, like there's a lot of legal questions here with this that I'm not a legal eagle on enough to be able to tell you one way or the other how truly legally exposed they are right now. But from a PR position, right, just having that information out there, and Alex, somebody like Alex on the lines over in the UK, in touch with media, in touch with government officials, like he's a firecracker, and you give him ammo like that, he's not going to just sit on it. So what happens next? I'm not exactly sure within the UK system what happens next. But not nothing, right? Something's going to happen. Already, just from what we already have indications of. And who knows what else they're sitting on. I mentioned earlier that the OSA stuff is probably separate from the base operational information. So I don't know if these hackers have hold of any OSA stuff. That's where the really, really, really sensitive stuff is. And maybe other illegal activities. I say maybe only because I'm being like super, super conservative right now, right? That's where the real dirt definitely is. But the dirt in the operational accounts on the visa stuff, on this other stuff is nothing. It's going to get Scientology in a lot of trouble if it's followed through on, and it turns out to be true that Scientology has been engaging in tax fraud against the UK government. That's a big deal. So that's just what we know or are suspecting so far from what we're seeing. And I thought it would be worth talking about some of that and bringing out that ancient history to bring out a little bit of what Miscavige is probably doing now. So we'll see where this all goes. Miscavige has a real interesting thing he does or has to do here, where he has to toe this line between public image and Sea Org ethics and justice and his own psychosis, right? And his need for, to whet his own appetite on people. So unfortunately, the people who are at the receiving end of that are going to end up being his inner circle and these people up and down the command channels of Scientology who didn't do anything wrong, to pull in this Russian hack. But according to the way Scientology thinks about things, that's exactly what happened. So these folks are, so I'm imagining that over the next, next few weeks or months, we might start seeing some more business coming our way at the Aftermath Foundation. I'm expecting it. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but that's what I'm thinking is happening. All right, so we have one more question on the question queue, and then we're going to go and see about wrapping up the show here for today. This has been fun. Xion asks, what happened to John Woodruff? What's that last bit there? Something him in Orange County. I met him in Orange County. Yeah, John Woodruff was the guy who used to run the Scientology mission of Orange County, and then it turned into an org. They converted it when they converted all the California missions into orgs in the 80s. John Woodruff took over as the ED, executive director of that org, and he is the guy who created the very first St. Hill size org, Orange County. And he could have maybe kept it going, but they took John and put him over into the executive director Los Angeles Day organization, the LA Day Church. And a guy named Ed Dearborn took over Orange County, and he didn't really know what he was doing. And so he kind of tanked the whole thing, which is fine, because Scientology was just ripping off businessmen left, right, and center in Orange County. That's how they were making their money. John got busted for massive false statistics, massive levels of false reporting of all the major stats in LA org. And he got RPF'd. I'll say that again. He was a public Scientologist, OT8 executive director. He was not a Sea Org member. He was a staff member. And they basically RPF'd his ass. Marty Rathbun personally ran him through a labor and sec checking program. All for him, all for John Woodruff. And he spent months doing physical work in the basement of the parking structure in PAC. I saw him there running around doing that. And it was his own personal RPF. I've never seen that done to any other individual the way it was done to John. It was a very weird thing. And John just disappeared after that. And he went from hero to zero overnight because of those false stats. And you just never heard from him after that. And not that he died or anything. They booted him, right? So that's what I can say about that. All right, there you go. So what a show. Okay, good. Glad we got to go over all this stuff. Yeah, Anonymous. I'm only struggling to read my teleprompter. I've actually got the glasses work really well otherwise. I just got these. But they're progressive lenses, and I'm still getting used to them. And for some reason, that is just not working for me. But otherwise, they actually work okay. So, not sure what to say. I'm still adjusting. We'll figure it out. But thanks for coming around and watching me blabber on at a mad rate like you guys do. I always appreciate viewership and support. And yeah, okay. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a good holiday season. I am not sure as I sit here right now. I meant to take December off. I always feel a little guilty and weirded out. And so maybe that's why I did this show today a little bit also. But I'm probably not going to do any more Q&As this month. But I've got so many podcasts in the queue that I'm just going to put them out. And so you'll get podcasts each week, and you'll continue to get my shows with Tony. But I don't think we're going to do this. But I may do a live stream with Alex in a couple days, just for fun. And just so he and I can talk about this stuff. And we'll see where we go from there. All right. Thanks for your viewership. Thanks for your support. I guess I got to go find out about all this drama going on in the... All right, guys. Let me get my thing over here. And as always, bye-bye.